Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, dear friends, dear viewers. In today's video, we will continue exploring games of Mikhail Tal. Not much games left. Let's go. Yes, Tal is having black pieces against Vitaly Tseshkovsky, and we see Roy Lopez open variation. d4, b5, bishop b3, d5, d takes c, bishop e6, c3, bishop c5. Another move is to play bishop e7, and if knight bd2, short castle or knight c5, bishop c5, knight bd2, short castle, bishop c2, f5. Yes, here recently in 2024, in Spanish team championship against Frederick Svane, I played knight takes f2, rook takes f2, f6, knight f1. White is threatening bishop e3, f takes bishop e3 is coming, bishop f2, king takes f2, f takes c, king g1. I played bishop g4. Some other moves are also possible, queen d7 or queen d6, bishop g4, knight e3, bishop e6. If I'm not mistaken, we repeated once knight f1, bishop g4, knight e3, bishop e6, and eventually Frederick went b3, d4, c takes d, e takes d doesn't really work because of queen d3, g6, bishop b2, knight d4, and here in 2024, Alireza had a game against Nodirbek, Wei Kanze, knight d4, queen d4, and rook b1. And game very soon ended in a draw. Bishop e4, here rook c8 is very much possible move. I went c6 and queen e1. Despite here, I already was 1 hour ahead on clock, but even after spending 30 minutes, uh, did not really understand the position and started making some inaccuracies and slowly got a very unpleasant position and eventually lost the game. But here black doesn't have any problems and the best move is to go. So f5, bishop b6, knight d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4. Tseshkovsky took with the pawn. Queen d4 is very much possible move. f4. Yes, black is threatening some f3 ideas. f3, knight g3, h takes g by Tseshkovsky. Engines are showing rook f2, queen h4, queen bishop d3, and white is much better. h takes g, f takes g, queen d3. Only move, bishop f5, takes, 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 queen h4, bishop h3, queen d4, king h1, queen e5. And now engines are saying position is around equal. And the best move is to play bishop d2. Yes. Tal took on b2. Also black could play rook f8 or rook e8. Bishop f4, b4, bishop takes c7. Maybe something like bishop e6, king h8, bishop g3, or rook a d1, c5, rook fe1 would have been slightly more precise. Yeah, just taking on g3, d2, rook a d1. And slowly white is getting unpleasant position. Rook e8. And now queen d4 would have been very strong. Bishop e8 is not possible because of queen h4, and if you go bishop h3, d2. So rook e2, of course, very tempting move. Bishop g3, and now rook g2 doesn't work because of rook b1. b2, f4, h5, bishop c6, bishop f3, king h2. Tseshkovsky plays uh, very decent chess. He found all the strongest moves. Yes, and here f5 would have been the best. Otherwise, white is in huge trouble. Rook f2, rook d3. Rook e2, and now king h7 would have been very strong. Bishop e4, g6. Tal goes rook d8, but anyway, white is having unpleasant position. Maybe rook e4, just hoping b4 would have been more precise. Rook e5 b4. Bishop h4, rook d4. Yes, this is very unpleasant. Bishop h5. Yes, rook a1. Yes, what if, let's say, d1 queen? Rook d1, rook d1, rook e8, king h7, bishop e4. So bishop takes h5, but this is already lost. b3. Bishop f2, rook f4. This is completely lost. And b2, and this, and queen e4. Yes, rook h6 ideas are also there. Yes, and Tseshkovsky resigned. Yes, you can see 25-45. Another game we are having Tal is having white pieces against Karen Grigorian. 25-20. Knight f3, c5, e4, d6. Najdorf with bishop e2, e5, knight b3, bishop e7, short. Castle, bishop e3, bishop e6. Yes, and as I know, queen d2, queen d3, rook e1, maybe even bishop f3 are possible moves. Of course, f4 as well. And now engine likes more e takes set, bishop f4, knight c6. Karen Grigorian plays queen c7, definitely with the idea to place the bishop on c4 after f5. Yes, but engines are suggesting after f5 bishop b3 a takes b knight b d7, because if f5 bishop c4 then white is taking and knight d2. White is having some pressure. a4 knight b d7. Now if f5 then bishop c4 comes. King h1 e takes f, rook f4, knight e5, a5, rook c8, rook f1, knight f d7. Yes, rook e8 would have been slightly more precise. Now rook e8, bishop f8. Tal is trying to bring the queen to g3 or maybe even h4. King h8, queen g3, g6, knight d4, bishop g7. And here Tal goes knight takes c6. The best would have been to play queen h4. And position is around equal. Knight takes c6, f takes c, queen h3. Black is tiny better after queen d8, rook e7 or king g8. Karen Grigorian plays knight b8, bishop d3, knight b d7, and here players agreed in a draw. Yes, very interesting game in a very high level. Another game, Tal is playing with the black pieces against Gennady Kuzmin. e4, c5, knight f3, 6, d4 takes knight c6, knight b5, d6, c4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, and knight d4. Knight a3 is another move to play. Knight d4. Yes, here bishop d7, d5, like is having. Yes. Atal goes bishop d7, bishop e2. Engine likes more rook c8, bishop e7 by Tal, short castle knight d4, queen d4, bishop c6. But engines are showing plus 0.6 for white after b4 or after bishop e3 as Kuzmin played. Short castle, and now again b4. Rook fd1 was played by Kuzmin, queen b8 to try some b5 ideas, a4 stopping b5, and now a5. Bishop g5. I don't think white is really threatening to take on f6. Rook e8. Maybe queen e3 would have been more precise. Bishop f3. h6, bishop h4, rook d8, rook c1, queen a7. And now queen d3 is the best move, queen b6, queen c2. And we are having around equal position. But Kuzmin took on a7 and played bishop g3. And after rook a8, I think Tal offered the draw, which was agreed, accepted by Kuzmin. Yes, black is having slightly better position. Another game we are having Yevgeny Vasyukov against Tal. e4, c5, knight f3, 6, d3. Yes, knight c6 and g3. Yes, here d5, queen e2, knight f6. I think is the best nowadays. g6. Yes, bishop g2 and maybe even c3. d4, c takes d, knight d4, and here Tal goes a6. Definitely he didn't like bishop g7, knight b5, but after bishop g7, knight b5, d5 ideas are there. He takes d, queen d5, queen e7 check. And black is even maybe tiny better. a6, takes, bishop g2, bishop g7, short castle, knight e7. Yes, and knight c3, d5, knight a4, short castle. White is better. Something like c3 or bishop e3, rook e1, rook b8. Again, c3 or bishop e3, e5, queen c7. Engine doesn't like this e4, e5 idea. Now if bishop g5, h6, if bishop f4, h6, queen d4. I apologize. And knight f5, queen c3, rook b5 or rook b5 with the ideas to play c5. But I'll go c5, queen takes c5, queen takes c5, knight takes c5, knight c6. And what if f4? I guess just knight d4. Yes, f4, knight d4, rook b1, knight c2, rook e2. c3 was played by Vasyukov. Knight takes c5, bishop f4. And here black could go f6, but Tal preferred rook b5. And now, for example, after b4, knight c4, rook c1, or b4, knight d7, a4, white is better. So bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, rook c5, bishop f1, a5, rook d1, a4, and players agreed in a draw. Yes, it's around equal position. c4, for example, white can push. Another game, Tal is having white pieces against Boris Gulko. Yes, we can see 24-35. c4, e5, knight c3, knight c6, g3. Yes, nowadays knight f6 and bishop b4 are the main moves. g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, e3, knight e2, d3, short castle, rook b8, rook b1, preparing b4, a6, b4, knight e7, a4, d5, c takes d, knight d5, b5, Yes, white is tiny better. Rook a8, queen c2, bishop e6, knight e4. Maybe threatening some knight c5 ideas, bishop g4. And now white could play h3 because bishop e2, queen e2, f5. We just go knight g5. Yes, knight g5 and knight c3. Yes, knight c5 or knight g5, knight c3, queen c2, knight b1, queen b1. All goes rook b3, b6, h3. Definitely he didn't like h3, bishop e2 takes and f5 ideas. Bishop d7, knight g5, knight f3, b takes c, knight c6, e4, knight e7, bishop e3, b5, queen d2. Yes, now if rook b5, knight d4 ideas are there. Yes, black could play queen a5, knight a5. Computer doesn't like this move much. Knight e c6, bishop f8, queen f8. Wow, it's fine. d4, he takes d, and now just rook d8. Black doesn't have any problems. Knight f5, queen c8, f takes g, f takes g. Yes, despite engine is showing only 0.3 for white, I think it's unpleasant for black to play rook c1, and here queen b8 is the only move. Knight f5 and g4. Yes, black is losing the knight on f5, so knight h4, bishop e7. Yes, just queen b8 and only 0.3. Queen c1, queen c1, rook e7, bishop d5. This knight on h4 is completely out of the game. King h2, f4 would have been better. Queen f1, queen c4, king g1, queen c8. And some bishop c7. If take, then rook c5, rook c2. Yes, very unpleasant position and lost position. Yes, rook b6, king c5. And even here, yes, threatening bishop g6 and h7. Yes, nicely played game by Tal. Slowly he got something because out of the opening uh, he was just slightly better. I think the crucial mistake for Gulko was when he played knight f5, allowing g4. Yes, next game, Oleg Romanishin is playing Tal. D4, bishop g7, e4, d6, knight c3. Not knight f6, knight d7, bishop e3, e5. Yes, white can simply play knight f3, f4. He takes d, bishop d4, knight f6, knight f3, short castle, bishop d3 or queen c2. Romanishin plays queen c2. Yes, b6. With the ideas maybe to play bishop b7 or even maybe c5 at some point. queen e7. Now white could play bishop d3, long castle, bishop h6. Yes, knight g5 or g3, knight e5, bishop e2, bishop g4. Yes, knight e5, d takes c, bishop g4, e takes d, knight d5. And white is much better. This takes, rook f3, knight takes e4. And again, white is much better. Yes, c5, c6, knight c3. And black doesn't have any problems. Knight b6, a takes b, knight f6, bishop f6. Takes. Wow. And rook a d8 would have been much stronger. a3, rook d6. Tal goes bishop d8. Oh, I think no, but here bishop e7 move doesn't make much sense. No, I think we are having some problem with the uh, game, with the moves. I don't think Tal really played bishop d8 because if you have this rook d8 move, why would you take with the bishop on d8? But from the other of view, if you play rook a d8, opponent goes a3, why do you play bishop e7? Anyway, let's move and see how Tal won with the white pieces against Mark Taimanov. c5, knight f3, e6, d4 takes, knight c6, knight c3, a6. Yes, nowadays knight c6, b takes c, bishop d3. White is also having bishop f4, bishop e3 moves. Yes. Knight e7. Yes, now knight b3. Maybe Tal goes f4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. Yes, knight c6 would have been better move. And maybe queen f2, d5. So Taimanov plays b5, short castle, queen c7, king h1, knight c6, queen f2, bishop e7, bishop e3, short castle, rook a d1, d6, and now queen g3, king h8, bishop d3, and now knight d4, bishop e2, bishop b7, knight a4. White also could go. Oh no, bishop f6, e takes f, e takes f. Yes, white could continue b3. Yes, rook e8, rook fe1. White is slightly better. Bishop takes f5, bishop takes, bishop takes b2, queen d3. And now black doesn't have any problems after a5 or rook a c8 or rook a e8, knight g3, and now something like knight e7. So knight a5 was played, huge uh, inaccuracy, mistake, knight e4. White is threatening knight d6 and knight g5 ideas. Maybe he wanted to play knight c4, but now knight g5, g6, bishop d4. And now knight takes d6, queen d3, rook takes d3. And white is already winning. And now f5, and now bishop c5, and now rook b1. White also could take bishop b4, knight c6, bishop c5, a3, a takes b. Yes, white could play knight c4, rook d1, g4, g5. Yes, and here Taimanov resigned. Yes, I think we can say that a crucial mistake was knight a5. because if something else like knight e7 or h6, yes, game goes on and position is quite complicated. Of course, white is not worse, but hard to really say that white having something significant. Yes, but knight a5, huge mistake, and after knight e4, white is much better. So next game, Tal is playing against Rafael Baganian, 25-40. Yes, knight c3, bishop b7, bishop g5, bishop b4, e3, h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, knight e4, and now bishop takes, and now d6, and now f5, d5, knight a6 or knight d7, with the ideas to come to c5. He takes d, engine doesn't like, c takes d, bishop d5, knight d4, threatening knight takes f5 and f3, and now f3, knight c5, bishop f5, knight takes, knight d7, bishop takes f5, long castle, queen a4, e5, king f2. Surprisingly, white's king on f2 is much safer than black's king on c8. Bishop b7, g4, white is much better. Knight c6, queen g7, knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and white is completely winning. Queen d4, queen f8, rook h3, king b8, rook h1, queen f7, and now c4. Tal goes a4, queen is knight e5, rook takes queen a2, king g3, queen e2, and again white is completely winning after queen d1 or e4 or bishop e4. Rook h8, huge mistake, rook h8, rook h8, king a7, and now black is having enough forces to threaten white's king on g3. So bishop e4, knight takes f3. Yes, I guess if bishop f3, bishop f3, if g takes f, queen e1. So this, knight g1, very important move. Very important move. Maybe even Tal missed this knight g1 move. And knight f3, knight g1, and game ended in a draw. Of course, Tal was completely winning. Next game we are having Viktor Kopreychik against Tal. Tal is having black pieces. And we see Taimanov, a6, bishop e2, queen c7, f4. Yes, Taimanov against Tal played knight e7, f4, knight d4, queen d4, b5. So this f4, b5 takes, d takes c is also possible, takes bishop f3, bishop b7, e5, queen c7 or queen b6, knight h6, rook d8, maybe at some point to go d6, knight f5, bishop takes, queen takes. Yes, queen d6, knight d6, takes, knight d3, rook b8. Maybe this move was blundered or missed by Kopreychik. Otherwise, here you do have some moves like bishop f2, d6. Yes, knight d6 takes. But even if black plays something like queen c4, they don't have any problems. So takes, maybe takes, and rook b8. Very important move. King e7 or even king d8. Yes, the best would have been bishop f3 or bishop e4. Bishop a6, knight e5. Now white is lost. Knight c7, takes, b takes c, threatening rook d1, protecting the pawn on b2. Maybe king f6 would have been stronger. Yes, black is completely winning. Yes, black is completely winning. Very nice win by Tal. And again, we can see that Tal lost with the white pieces against Belyavsky. Okay, let's see this one. And another Tal is losing with the white pieces against Lev Polugaevsky. So d4, c5, d5, d6, e4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, knight f3, knight a6, bishop b5, bishop d7, bishop a6, bishop e2, knight c7, short castle, knight f6, rook e1, short castle, h3, b6, a4, bishop b7, bishop f4, queen d2, bishop c4. White is much better. Bishop h6, takes, it takes c, bishop b5, a takes b. White is much better, and bishop b5 very classy move. e5, rook a3 or rook a4 would have been much stronger, or even b3. Yes, now queen e3. Takes this, knight g5. Now white doesn't have anything after knight f6, and now bishop d5, e4. Yes, computer likes more h6, knight d5, it takes d, knight d6, king f7. Now f3, knight takes d5, knight takes d6, knight g5, rook e7, knight e7, g4. Again, white is much better. And now knight e6. Albert goes knight e4, king f7, king f2, rook f8, king f3. Yes, here b3 or c4 would have been very good for white. King f3, inaccuracy or mistake, knight d5. Rook d5, king e6 is coming. And now black doesn't have much problems. And after king g3, players agreed in a draw. Thank you very much, dear friends. In my YouTube channel, you can find few more videos uh, about Tal's streak. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to find and collect all the games. Simply, I I couldn't find them in my databases. I don't know where else can I uh, search them or try to find them. Yes, overall, I found about 75 games. But again, in between, Tal lost some games. I very much hope that it was some uh, bleeds, maybe some training games, or uh, because Wikipedia or Google, and they when you search, you see that Tal didn't lose 95 games, but simply you cannot find them. Yes. Thank you very much, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave your comments. Thank you very much.